Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode. As always, wherever in the world you are listening to us from, whatever platform you're listening to us on, thank you guys so much for all of the support, all of the messages, all the things that you've sent to me, all the things that you've sent to the show. Can't say enough about how much I appreciate that and connecting with you guys and hearing from you guys. So keep that coming, and I always looking forward to connecting with you all as listeners. This is a real fun topic because I love hearing from coaches and guests specifically on here who just beam with pride for their program and instill pride in their program, and players, hold their head up high and they're proud to be at the school that they're at. And, it's a source of pride in the community, and the people at the school and in the community can tell, like, wow, this, boys program or this girls program has a lot of really cool things going. Like, I want to check this out. And there's excitement happening in the program. And I love all that stuff. That energizes me. And I'm sure for a lot of you listening, it does the same thing for you. So well, that's what we're going to get into today. We'll get into the topic of kind of building player pride in their program, and talk about maybe things ranging from, play style to things that you can do off the court to, maybe some pitfalls you have to be wary of about things that might kill pride. But this is going to be our focus here, building players' pride in their program. So let's jump right into it with my guest. He is the head boys basketball coach at Centennial High School. Very happy to be joined today by Coach Spencer Waldvogel. Coach, again, appreciate you being able to come on here and talk to us today. How are things going?
Pretty good. I appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to it.
Coach, let's jump right in to your journey, your basketball journey, your coaching journey. Talk us through where this great game of basketball has taken you, and ultimately, how did you end up at Centennial High?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I played for Centennial and graduated in 2009. So right from the get-go there, I obviously love the school and love the area, love the community, love the people, obviously, and started coaching basketball when I was about 10 years ago. I coached for a year at North St. Paul High School. It's a bigger school in St. Paul, Minnesota. And then ended up there was a coaching change at North St. Paul and at Centennial, actually. So took a ninth grade job at Centennial for a couple of years. And then I turned into the JV coach for a couple of years. And then by chance, the head coach resigned and I applied and got the job at my alma mater. So pretty excited about that. And, funny story with Centennial High School, how in elementary school, you always do those things like all about me, what you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah.
When I was 10 years old in fourth grade, what I wanted to be when I grew up was the Centennial boys basketball coach.
Wow.
So it's kind of a full circle moment there. And, we talk a lot about, we'll talk a little bit about pride today. And, if there's anyone with more pride at Centennial, I'd like to meet him. So.
How cool, man. What a way to have that come all the way back. That's awesome.
For sure.
Couple things I was thinking about as you were saying that. The first one is what was that like, kind of going from being an alumni to then like jumping right into the coaching? Did you feel like, that was really, really easy? It like fit like a glove? Was it kind of a bit of a transition to be like, oh, I was at school here and now I'm, working here as a coach here? What was that like?
Yeah, I was a few years out of high school when I got my first job at Centennial, but I had younger brothers, so I had known guys that I was coaching, and known these guys since they were 5, 6 years old. So that was a little different. I honestly think it helped a lot with the parent process of coaching, like dealing with parents and being able to talk to parents. Just because those first couple of years I did know a lot of the parents and was comfortable enough to speak with the parents when there was any issue or if they had an issue or whatever. So I think that helped a lot. It wasn't like, I don't know, I think they all kind of knew that I wanted to be a coach and that was kind of my thing. And it wasn't like, oh, this is so weird that Spencer's our coach or this is for me, this is so weird that I'm coaching whoever. Like, it was just kind of like my thing, and people kind of knew that, and we just kind of rolled with it. So,
And so you had like the excitement, like, all right, like he finally got it. We knew he wanted this job and now he's here. Like, let's go sort of thing.
I mean, I hope so, but
That's awesome. No, no, I imagine that that must have been the case. I have to also ask, Coach, because looking at your Twitter profile, I know that there's a lot of coaches who do this, but man, you not only are you coaching basketball, you're also you help with coaching football. You also are coaching golf. Like, how do you manage it? How do you manage all the hands you have in different sports?
yeah, sometimes it gets a little tough. I mean, so I have 5 kids, and we just had our 5th baby in February of this year. So we have
Congrats.
a newborn. Thank you. So, sometimes it gets a little crazy, but the other coaches that I work with, the football coach at Centennial and the girls golf coach at Centennial, they're great. If there's ever a time where I need to run out or anything like that, like it's never never an issue. And again, all goes back to the Centennial community, right? I mean, so it's always great. But yeah, like I said, it does get tough. I mean, there's some nights my wife isn't my biggest fan when I'm gone or whatever till the wee hours of the night. But um, and first of all, she's great. She's a saint for letting me do all this stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's a juggling act sometimes, especially when the seasons overlap. Our football program has been pretty good the last couple of years, and sometimes we've had to overlap stuff, and that gets there's no really break for me from the fall to the winter, especially. So
Yeah, I mean, you talk about keeping busy, right? You
yeah,
talk about staying busy. But like one of the things too, though, that is kind of cool, I imagine, is in that situation when you do coach sports like that, that there's probably stuff that's like transferable, right? I'm sure there's ways that maybe approach like a situation in golf or you approach a situation in football, and you kind of can think like, okay, how do I like take that and translate into like a basketball sense, or there's
oh for
different
sure,
things you
yeah,
can maybe take from one or the other, and then that can kind of help build your coaching profile a little bit too.
yeah. And we're a school that needs the multiple sport athletes, so on top of being involved in other things, you're getting to hang out with some of your guys that play football, and getting to connect with them in that way. Or if they're a big football player, but and they play basketball too, you can kind of relate things to the football season as once basketball season is around. If that's the case, like it's just building more relationships with the guys that are there too. So that's one of the things that's great. And obviously, coaching girls golf is such a different transition from being a head coach from a boys basketball team and then being a football coach in the fall. Like the girls are great in the spring. Like they just want to learn and get better, and they work their butts off too. So it's kind of a great transition from season to season to season.
Yeah, that's awesome for sure. Coach, before we get into the topic, I know something else that you're really passionate about is you describe yourself as being a defensive minded coach, which I think is awesome. So I wanted to ask you about what is your defensive system, and then also what's the process of getting your guys to buy into playing defense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, from day one, whether that's
Mhm.
summer workouts, tryouts, first day of practice, whatever, um, our main thing is defense. Good, obviously, good D. We think good D leads to good O, um, and we stress right away. If you can't defend, if you can't guard, if you can't understand what we're doing on defense, if you can't pay attention to our defensive call, if you can't understand this stuff, you can't be on the floor. Because in our eyes, everyone in the game right now can score. I mean, everybody watches
Hmm.
LeBron and Curry and whoever, and they can score the basketball. Can we defend it and give ourselves a better chance? And that's kind of how we play our game. And excuse me again, but defensively, we do a lot of different things. We like to switch it up a lot in the middle of games, depending on who we're playing. So go couple of zones. This last season, we had the guys that would be able to full court press the whole time. So we were in a full court press the whole entire game. And then depending on if we were a zone, we'd fall back a little bit. But we multiple defenses try to throw some teams off. We play in a conference in Minnesota that is extremely tough and extremely competitive.
Hmm.
So anything to get that little competitive edge, we try to do. So whether that's just we added a shot clock last year, so 35-second shot clock. So can we switch a D after an offensive possession and force them to get into a different set, which wastes 10, 15 seconds of that shot clock. So now they're pressing a little bit. Come down on offense again. Can we switch it up? Can we switch our D up again? Forces them to change what they're doing. Get in their right set. So try to throw people off a little bit that way. And then sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we like to do that just to give a different look.
Well, I mean, I like doing that. What you said is if you have a team that's smart and you have a team that has, pretty strong basketball IQ and they're able to kind of slip in and slip out and do different things, maybe
Right.
disguise, certain defenses or like you said, consistently switch up what it is that they're doing. I think that does a lot to maybe counter a team that might be more, physically gifted or they might
Right.
have,
Yep.
a good offensive skill set. But like you said, if they have to consistently kind of adjust or adapt to a different defense because it's always switching and they can't get into a rhythm with that, that
Yeah.
that alone, like you said, could be disruptive enough that creates you that advantage that you need.
Right. And obviously there's some games where it's like, hey, we're I'm probably going to give stuff away. You had Eric Leafblad on earlier this year, but we play him next year, and our defensive calls are all colors. So we're like, hey, orange isn't working tonight. Like let's not go back to orange, or red's not working tonight. Let's
Hmm.
not go back to red. We obviously make those in-game adjustments, but yeah, I mean, it's something that we believe in, and like I said, if they can't understand it, if they can't pick it up, like there's a good chance they're not playing. So that's
Yeah.
basically how we stress it and how we get these guys to buy into the defensive end.
It's that old adage, right, about how great of a motivator the bench is, right?
Right.
That'll
Yes.
get you to buy
Yes.
into playing defense real quick. No, I like that, Coach. Kind of nice transition here as we kind of talk about player pride. Again, it's a unique perspective for you, being an alumni of the program, but kind of talk about the kind of the state of the program and where the program was at, from your assessment when you took over, and what were some of the initial steps that you took to either build or kind of rebuild pride in that first group that you had.
Yeah. I mean, so like I said, I graduated in 2009. I got the job in the summer of 2021. So 12 years since I graduated, I was the fifth head coach in those 12 years at Centennial. So not a lot of consistency. And that, nothing against the coaches that were before me, but just the stuff that they were doing just didn't stick. And that happens sometimes wherever you go. So those guys are great. But from where I stood, obviously an alumni, obviously a lot of pride for the program, obviously something I really wanted as a young kid. So we just established very, very defined team rules. We did little stuff like discipline stuff like, hey, away games, you're in a tie. If you're not in a tie, you can't play that night. As far as grades go, like if you're have an F in a class and you're missing 10 assignments, you can't play that night in that game if you have an F on the game day. We brought in a lot of alumni. A lot of alumni when I first got the job were pretty excited. So we brought a lot of alumni, ranging from years of graduation, like from 1990 to 2015. So a lot of guys came in and spoke to the team and just talked about, the Centennial tradition. And in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was we were a really good program. And so just kind of instilling that, like, hey, we can get back there, but we've got to put in the work. It's not just going to be given to us, So,
Hmm.
defined a lot of those, and, adopted the culture of, I'm sure if you've seen the tweets, not me, but we.
Yep.
Got to be
Yep.
about we. It cannot be about, just an individual. It's got to be a team. We're not a school that's going to be, high flying dunks and 30-point a night scorers and Division I players left and right. Like, we're going to have to grind, and we're going to have to grind on the D end, and we're going to have to grind on the O end. Like, we play 36 minutes in Minnesota. Like, it's 36 minutes hard as you can go. You need a break, be a good teammate, let us know. We'll get somebody else in there. You'll have another chance. Just little things like that. Like, it's got to be about us. It's got to be having pride for your school. It's got to be about having pride for your community, pride for yourself, pride for your family in attendance, like everything. So it was a tough transition, but my first group really bought in. Just those guys, I can't say enough good things of my first group of seniors I had. Just did everything I asked. Parents were great, did everything I asked, and it translated on the floor. We went from, a team that the prior year that I took over, losing a lot of games by, 15, 20, 25, 30. We were losing
Mm-hmm.
games. We were losing games by 5, 6. We were beating a team that we probably weren't supposed to by 3. We were being competitive in games. We were competing hard.
So with that first group, right? You're bringing in changes. You're bringing in a new stuff, right? You're talking about the grade policies, dress code, all these different
Yep.
policies, play style. What was the buy-in process like from your guys? Was there some hesitancy? Was there a little bit confusion? Was there this immediate, hey, we're all in, we'll run for a wall with this? What was like the reception that you kind of got as you were, laying all this out to them?
Honestly, they were pretty much, hey, we'll run through the wall right now. When I first got the job, I had texted, some of the guys that were going to come back, and right away, as soon as I sent a text to one kid, he calls me right away and says, I literally just told my parents that I'm not even going to play next year unless Spencer gets the job. And I was like, well, that's nice, but you should be playing. You should be playing anyways, no matter who's got the job. But just stuff like that. And that was kind of the way the group was. Like, I had coached these guys in ninth grade, and I had coached those guys at JV, so they were familiar with me and my style and how I kind of would do things. So that group of seniors that the class of 22,
hmm
they would have ran through a brick wall for it if you asked them to, and that's what you loved about them.
Well, like that's something that is really really cool to kind of like think about and process maybe for people who are looking to take over like a new coaching job or they're going to be in, a new coaching situation is that sometimes we think that if you step into a coaching situation, maybe like the guys aren't going to be quick to buy in, or maybe there's going to be like some resistance, or there's a reason why there's been so much coaching turnover and there's like some big cultural struggles. But like from hearing your story and the way that you explain things, I could tell that there was already there were guys and there were community members and their family members who were just like waiting for somebody like really bought in, and they were ready. They were ready to go. They were just waiting for that coach who was like going to hit the ground running, and those pieces were already there. So sometimes you
Right.
can step into situations where you have like the pieces are in place, the people want to get better, the community wants to support the program, and you lay out something with a clear plan of like how they're going to build this thing, and it's like boom, they're going to run for the wall, like you said.
Right. And it's as a new coach, you're always like, oh, I'm going to come in and this is going to change, this is going to change, and we're going to win 18 games, we're going to win 20 games, whatever. And it's like we were super honest with the guys. We're like, hey, winning's great. Obviously, that's one of the major goals in playing sports, but we need to just start by competing. Like, we need to compete for 36 minutes. Like, give ourselves a shot. And we were super honest with the guys. I mean, I think that's partially what they appreciated too. It wasn't like, hey, we're coming in here and we're gonna go to state this first year. It was like, it's gonna be an uphill battle, but we're gonna need to be ready to fight. And those guys were so ready.
So with that, because I think this is a good time to ask this, because you kind of led into this question that I was going to ask, is you mentioned this idea of like, hey, we're not necessarily going to go for a state championship this first
Right.
year. We're going to measure success in other ways. So you mentioned about the idea of competing. Was that like kind of the big mantra for that year? Were there other sort of measurables or things that you were kind of using to kind of quantify like this is what success is going to look like, even if they're not necessarily wins on the scoreboard?
Yeah, I mean, that first year we like, yeah, I mean, we really went with the competing route. Like, I think because these guys had been in so many games of, like, for lack of a better term, blowouts. And
hmm
again, no disrespect to anybody before me or guys before them. Like, it's just kind of what was the norm at the time. It was the doormat. And I think just going with that and, like, obviously getting on them when they need it, but I always, being a little more positive that first year. Like, hey, we played really well. We just got to close it out. We played really well. It was just that 5 minute stretch in the first half where we couldn't score, or just trying to find the little things in that first year. Like, hey, we're really close. We're really, really close. And I think that just kept, building and building and building. So,
No, I like that a lot about like you realize, I think, when you first take over in a job and you look at like success, how it comes in like different, chunks of time. Like you said, there might be like this really good like 7 or 8 minute stretch that we had there. Maybe, we didn't put the whole 32 minutes together, but we had this 7 or 8 minute stretch, and then maybe, a few games later it's a 10 to 12 minute stretch or like a 14 to 15 minute stretch, and you just kind of build from there. And I think as a coach, when you get really excited about those successes that they're having versus, worrying about what they haven't done yet, or, the fact that maybe they didn't win, I think if you kind of frame the conversation and the guys can see like, one, they can see that they're getting better, but two, they can see that you're like excited and you're staying positive and you're finding all these different, successes that they're having. That could be really motivating to a program.
Right. Like I said, when these guys work their tails off every day in practice, so it was hard to not necessarily get on them, but it was hard to like constantly pick and pick and pick. Like it was such a great year, and I think it was a great from what they've told me after the fact. Like it was such a great experience. It was like, okay, we're on the right track. At least we're on the right track to getting where we want to go. We've kind of laid that foundation of how our culture is, how our play style is, what we want to do, how we need to be as teammates, how we need to be as student athletes in the classroom. I think that first year we laid a great foundation.
So you mentioned this idea of competing, and I love this idea of like, hey, we're gonna be competitive. But what did that kind of look like on the court? So what did you gonna do with your guys to put them into a play style that you thought was going to lead to them being competitive? So what were some of the things that you were kind of implementing offensively, defensively, putting in place and saying like, hey, these, 25, 30 point blowouts, now we're trimming those by half or more.
Right.
What play style do you think led to that?
That was. I think that was the second to the last. That was the. We were still 2 years out from the shot clock. So
Hmm.
again, we stress defense. Like we're not going to be competitive at all if we can't stop anybody. We give up 90 points. We're probably not going to score 90 points. So if we can get teams down to the 60 to 70 whatever range, and then on offense, if we can kind of slow it down, be methodical, make the right pass, make the easy play, try not to be too flashy, hit the open guy, knock down a few shots, we'll be all right. I mean, there was a game where I think at the time we were playing the eighth ranked team in the state, and we slowed the ball down big time, and we ended up winning the game 37-36. And I
Mm.
was like, it was one of
Oof,
those things like,
grinded.
yeah, I mean, it was a grind, man. It was one of those things where it was like, did we just do that? And it was like, yes, we did. Like we can compete with anybody we want to. You know what I mean? So another great win for the program. But again, just spoke to the guys that were on that team and how they played and how they reacted and how they went into each day. So
Yeah, to have that sort of like play style, right? We kind of use that term grinding, and I think to really play that way, I'm thinking on the offensive end especially, and I'll let you speak to it. Like you really got to focus on like some high level execution. You really got to
yeah,
have some precision and be precise, because if you're going to limit the amount of possessions, you really got to maximize what you're doing on each of those possessions. So it was like when you think about like the offense that you were running, I imagine there had to been a lot of focus maybe on the detail and how to like
yeah,
really, hit those passes or good shot selection, all those things to make each possession count.
yeah, for sure. And then you add in the shot clock. What 2 years into my head coaching experience, and that's a whole different ball game, right? I mean, um, now you have to practice with the shot clock. Like you can't just go into a game and yep, there's a 35-second shot clock now, boys. Like remember, we got to get a shot off. Like
Yeah.
it's you got to practice it, and you got okay. This play is going to take this long, or this action is going to take this long. Or that's so we have to be in our right spot. We have to know what we're doing from multiple spots. We have to execute, have to be able to execute. So that's where it's changed a little bit. I mean, I think with the shot clock, especially, that helped us defensively.
Mhm.
Like I said, it was switching up multiple Ds. Now there's a time limit on it that they have. The opposing team has to get into a different set or whatever. And offensively, I think it changes a little bit. Like there's almost a little more sense of urgency, obviously. And again, like you have to be tactical and know what you're doing, and you've got 35 seconds to do it. So execute.
what we just got like the shot clock fully implemented this past
Okay.
year, and yeah, we definitely had that like everything I felt like which just went a little bit faster. Everything
Yeah.
had to be a
Oh, for
little bit
sure.
quicker, a little bit
For
more
sure.
like, okay, a little more sense of that urgency there because, yeah, like you don't have that time, or even just, at least I know it was for my girls, it's just even though they would beforehand always get possessions off probably in 35 seconds, just knowing that clock existed, I think was
Right.
just something enough to make them like be thinking about it. It's like, ooh, let's just be a little more sharper, a little bit more precise. So yeah,
Right.
that's kind of a bit of a transition then to go from, to not having that shot clock and then boom, then you're putting in. It's just that other layer that you kind of have to add as a coach.
Right. And like you said, about taking a little bit off on offense, like that's where we tell our guys, like, you got to play defense for 35 seconds.
Hmm.
Can you play perfect for 35 seconds? And then offensively we'll go do our thing. And then can you play perfectly again for 35 seconds? That's kind of what we preach now, with the shot clock. So,
Yeah, I like that. And it's good. I like that mantra for sure. I wanted to kind of add on to that, coach. We want players to, play with pride, and we want them to, really, really get after it and have a lot of pride. They're going to have to uh, practice a certain way. There's going to have to be a certain standard that's held to practices where, um, they know that they're going to be pushed hard. They're going to be getting the most out of it. There's a certain way that at least in my experience, players kind of hold their head up high when they know they've really been through some strenuous, productive practices. So as you got into the program and even now to this point, what is kind of your practice plan, and how do you make sure that like you're really really getting the most out of your guys, and that it's something that they're really buying into, committing to playing hard in those practices?
right. I mean, we pretty much start off every practice with some sort of like live action game, whether that's 5-on-5 or 4-on-4 or 11-man, 3-on-2, whatever, for about 10 minutes, and then we go right into defense. Like it's a full blown, like, right away in practice you're on your game with defense. Like it could be 15 minutes, it could be a half hour working on every sort of defense, working on our press, working on how we want to defend a certain player, how we want to defend a certain action from the other team. We go right into it, and then we go into some stations, just to not settle down a little bit, but like
Hmm.
maybe not as strenuous every day. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
going to some stations, going to some offensive work, and kind of get our 5-on-0 actions, what kind of how we want to play against. It's a lot of what do we want to do against this team, or like who do we think is going to guard this so and so. Like how do we want to play that? And then we end our practice with situational stuff. And this year we went to a model where we were on the court for 90 minutes every practice. So it took out the 2-hour practices. We were on the court for 90 minutes, and then we were either in the weight room for a half hour, or we were in the film room for a half hour. So it was still 2 hours, but we limited that time on the court a little bit, just to keep guys fresh, and get a little more, strength training, obviously, mind training with the film. So
Hmm.
it played out well. I think the kids really bought into it and liked it. That was one of the things that, in our postseason conversations, that a lot of kids liked, getting in the weight room, getting in the film room. Um, so that's part of how you get these guys to go hard for the whole practice too. Like, hey, we're cutting down to 90 minutes. Like we got to go. We got to, and realistically, in a given practice, probably 15 minutes of that is kind of standing around listening. So
Hmm.
can you go hard for that whole 75 minutes? 70 minutes that we're on the floor. So, and that's about, maybe a little less, but that's about what a game is like, right? I mean, so can you go that hard for the whole time? So, and that's kind of how we play it, and that's what we do.
Well, I like when you take a practice, right, and like you said, you get it down to like, whether it's a 90-minute time frame or whatever it is, like you're sending the message of like, hey, this practice may be, a little bit, shorter than like conventionally or what you've been
Right.
used to in the past, but we're gonna make like every second, right? Every minute
Yeah.
we're getting after it for every minute that you're in here. And I think guys and girls they can understand when their like
Yeah.
time is being respected, and they know like, hey,
Sure.
we're only gonna practice for this hour and a half and in this gym, and then obviously like you said, it'll do something else, film or the weight room. But knowing that, it's you're cutting out some of the fat or the transition time or
Yeah.
whatever it
Yeah.
is, and you're just having a concentrated time. I think guys, really respect that and will like go all out to make the most of that, even if it is a little bit shorter than a conventional 2 hour gym practice.
Yeah, for sure. And I think overall we had some of our best practices, in the last 4 years of our time as coaches in the program. Like we had some of the best practices this year, just because of that. I think guys were fresh. Guys were fresh for longer.
Hmm.
You know, obviously you're playing your best basketball at the end of the season, and that's what we were doing. I think a lot of that is the guys were fresh. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah. No, that's great. And I love the competitive aspect. I think there's such a element of pride there when you have players who are willing to push each other and compete against each other. I always tell my girls that the people that should be, pushing you the hardest are like your teammates and the people that
yeah,
you're closest to on the team. And so if you have, players who are bought into that aspect of like playing hard with pride and they're going to compete and push each other to get better. I think it's such a healthy dynamic when you have guys who are going hard against each other, playing hard against each other, but they know it's because it's for the betterment of the team.
yeah, and I mean it started this summer too for this group that we had last year. I mean, I remember sending a group text to our coaching and was like, "This is summer open gym. Guys are just playing." I'm like, "We just had a guy dive for a loose ball out of bounds." I'm like, "That has never happened in open gym in the summer. It
Hmm.
happens in the season or whatever, but in the summer in open gym, we had a guy dive for a loose ball, and we're like, all right, this team's gonna have some grit."
It's different.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah, no, I mean that's like okay, these guys are bought in. No,
right,
these guys are ready to go. I love the stuff though that you mentioned about the way that you'll get after it on the defensive end. I think when you got guys who are just bought into playing defense and they're bought into the idea of stopping somebody, to me that's always been one of like a huge plus and a huge bonus in like having pride in your program when you know, want to protect your home court. You don't want to, get
right,
blown out by 30 or 35
right,
on your home court. And you make that emphasis on defense of where like, hey, nobody's going to come in here and just, walk all over us in our home gym. We're going to play a certain way and everyone's going to have to earn it when they play us. And I
yeah,
definitely get the sense that that's what things are like for you over at
yeah,
Centennial.
yeah. That's what we try to be. That's for sure.
No, that's awesome, Coach. I was going to then kind of ask as we kind of lead on to as you kind of had that foundational piece a few years ago, and you were kind of continually looking for ways to kind of continue to build on that pride and continue to kind of build player pride in your program. What were some things that you kind of took or added on or layers that you put on from that first year as you kind of were going to the next year, all the way up to a very successful season that you had this past year?
Yeah, thank you. We just kind of implemented some things like just hanging out with the guys outside of basketball, outside of the court. I mean, we
Hmm.
implemented team dinners. Um, we're very fortunate to have families that have the whole team over to their house for a team dinner. And they take care of everything, whether they pay for something that they make or whether they pay for something to be brought in. Like, very fortunate to have families that are able to do that. So we have team dinners once a week, or try to have it once a week at least. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but so just getting guys hanging out together. Um, Community service stuff. We go to feed my starving children. So I believe they have those in Arizona, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So doing stuff like that. Our kind of our service work. And then honestly, in the summer we always go to a team camp. And stay in a hotel, play 2 games, stay in a hotel, play another 2 games, and it's gone. Like it's a 24-hour trip. It's super fast, but the guys absolutely love it. Like you just get to hang out, you get to play basketball. They're games that obviously matter, but in the grand scheme of things, like if you lose a summer game at a team camp, it's like, all right, hey guys, got to get a little bit better. It's not like the end of the world, right? So
Right.
just doing that trip every summer is huge for us. Guys love it, and just getting guys to know each other outside of basketball. Because I think a lot of times in the past it was kind of basketball was just kind of a thing to do,
Mm.
and now especially with this group of seniors that we just had, like basketball, it was the thing this year. Like I told you in our prior meeting, like we had a kid that put up 25 points a game and was really good. And he led the whole thing. I mean, he was one of our best leaders we've ever had. regardless of how many points he scored each night or how many, assists he had each night or rebounds, whatever. Like, he was really good. And I had a really good group of three captains this year that we've laid that foundation the first couple of years, and these three captains that we had this year laid the foundation even more. It was even more. You could see it more this year than ever before. So that was great. But again, just making sure getting the guys to know each other, off the court. I think that takes, we talk about pride. Like, you walk around school and it's like, yeah, I'm on the basketball team, like, and everybody knows it. You know what I mean? Whereas before,
Right.
maybe it wasn't that way. But just having that sense and being able to do that that's huge. So that's a start.
Yeah, like the parts that you mentioned about the stuff that you kind of do off the court, and the way that you kind of can build that camaraderie and kind of build that the team aspect of it, and guys look at each other as not just like teammates that they see for a few months in the winter, but these are year-long relationships that are being cultivated and being worked on, and the more that those guys kind of are in those situations, right, where they're, going off to, do something at somebody's house, or they're in, a team camp somewhere, things like that, they really, I think, really start to really play for each other. And there's a
Yeah.
certain,
Yep.
pride for like, this is more than just this teammate that I'm playing with a few months. This is somebody who I consider like a lifelong friend. And where, we worked in these stressful situations in
Right.
basketball together. And those are things that can definitely, elevate your program when those bonds are forged like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there was a few opportunities this year where guys had certain accolades, whether it was in football or basketball, and I was just so proud of how guys reacted to those awards. Like, you never know with high school kids, like, how people are going to react to certain stuff. And like, our guys this year, we had one of our basketball kids was an all-star in football. He made the state all-star game. And
Yeah.
I remember telling our captains that, and like, all three of them were ecstatic. Like, they were so excited for him. And it was genuine excitement too. It wasn't like, the fake, like, whatever. It was just genuine excitement. And, like I said, we had a player that was a pretty good player at our school. I'd argue a top 3 player ever to play at Centennial High School.
Mhm.
And guys just beamed when he played well and just had a great game. And obviously when he did play well and had a great game, we won.
Mm.
Or most likely, I should say. But just the genuine excitement for him too. Like, it was great, man. This group was very special.
No, I could hear it in your voice. I could hear the excitement there. Now that I can imagine these guys, like, I mean, because I mean, you're talking especially with this group, right? Like the journey that you've been on with them for this period of time. So you're with this past group. This is kind of, in a lot of ways, kind of like a big culmination of a
Yeah,
lot of the process that this group has bought into, and they've been along with you in the journey. You can kind of like they kind of grew up along with your coaching journey here at Centennial. That's special.
yeah. I mean, I was just telling one of them yesterday at school. Like, my first year, those 3 were freshmen playing varsity or JV for me. So they were with us as freshmen, and obviously have been with us the last 4 years. So then being captains as seniors. So it's like, I joked with one of them yesterday. I said, I don't know how to be a head coach without you 3 on the team. I'm gonna have to figure some new things out here.
Right?
So,
Like, wait, like, what am I gonna do in the fall or something in the winter?
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm just gonna be calling out your name, like, thinking you're still gonna be there, right?
pretty
So,
much, yeah.
um, Coach, talk about you mentioned this earlier, so I want to address this about the importance and the steps that you took to make sure that you got parents involved, family members involved, community involved. How important was it for you to, make sure that these members outside of the immediate basketball players also had pride and were bought into what you were doing?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm from here, and I obviously live
Right.
in the community that,
Well known. Yeah.
what I mean. So, not, I mean, know a lot of people in the community. A lot of people are, excited for me, whether they agreed with me becoming the head coach or not. They were excited. Um, but we got, just having the alumni come in, and having the alumni, like, just embrace the kind of the new era of Cougar basketball, like, has been unreal. I mean, like I said, we went to the section championship this year for a chance to go to state. And after winning that semifinal game, there were, dudes coming up to me that graduated in 97 and 93 and 2001 and 2004. And,
Mm-hmm.
my best friend from 2009 was at the game. Like, so many alumni have come back and are back in our gym, whether that's speaking to the team, showing up to practice a few times just to watch, or coming to games. Like, that was a big piece for me, was getting the alumni back in the gym. 'Cause I think that was missing a little bit. And I think that's part of the pride within a team. Like, hey, you're playing for the guy that played 20 years ago. Also, like, he's cheering for you every day to be better than he was, or for our team to be better than their team. Like, they're cheering for you. Like, you put that jersey on. 10 years ago, so and so wore that jersey. Like, you're playing for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, trying to instill that pride in our players for that way was a huge thing. Also, which is why, again, I wanted the alumni to be a part of our program as much as possible. So that was a big piece for me. And obviously, community wise, like, again, kind of being from the area and knowing a lot of people, like, got maybe a little more fan following. So having a year like we did this year was fun to have, just because it was like, okay, we've taken another step. Can we keep continuing to take steps? Whether that be big steps, small steps, whatever. And just making sure that community is still backing us and behind us all the way. So
Well, it's so important to what you've said about like you are intentionally making that effort to make sure that the community is involved. I think that there's obviously something to be said about, building the program and then people might get, naturally more interested and go check it out. But that idea of intentionality of, going out of your way to make sure that people are knowing what's going on, get them involved, bringing those alumni back, those sort of efforts that a coach can make to like make those connections, say no, like I explicitly want you guys to be back here and see the things that you're doing, like that can really energize a community to know that like, oh, this program that meant so much to me, they're reaching back out to me and they still want me to come and support and be a part of it.
right. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's because I am an alumni, but I just feel like having those guys be in the gym is so important for our younger guys, our high school kids, to see, like, hey, this is gonna be me in 10 years. Like, let's go do this thing for these guys,
Mm.
So um it's been great, guys. These guys are awesome. So um just getting texts after random games, like, oh, look like you had a pretty good game last night. Give me the rundown. Or like, hey, good luck tonight. Like, on just a random Tuesday night that we're going to play whoever. Like, hey, good luck tonight. Like,
They're paying attention.
right. I
Yeah.
mean, and like I said, we try to bring in one a week just to speak on any topic. And it's not even alumni that we bring in all the time. Like, we've brought in community members, we brought in city council members, we brought in the mayor of one of the towns that make up our school. Like, we brought in a Minnesota State representative that I'm good friends with. I mean, we've got a lot of different community members that have come in to speak to the team also, and it's always like a certain life topic that we try to talk about other than basketball. Like, everything kind of translates to basketball, but it's stuff like just life stuff, that whether that's a life story, or you know what this person thinks, like, how it's supposed to be, or I mean, just anything. Kind of empower those guys to be like, hey, teach a life lesson, teach a basketball lesson if you want to, you know take
Hmm.
that life lesson and put it into basketball, like anything you want. So it was great. They're usually about, not long, like 5-10 minutes, but always very impactful. Kids always seem to love them. Like, every time we don't have a guest speaker for a little bit, like, everybody's like, hey, when are we having a guest speaker again? So
That means something to them. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
right,
Like, it's
right.
something like unique that they get too. It's this unique like bond and this unique like opportunity to hear from somebody that like, oh, this is something like a privilege, and I get to,
Yeah,
maybe hear from this that not everybody else has access to, sort of thing.
yeah. And it's kind of like, one of those things for me. you know I don't know if this is the case or not, but it's like, it can't just always come from my voice or always come from another coach's voice. Like, they're with us every day. Like, no matter
Hmm.
if no matter if it's a coach that you absolutely love, like, sometimes you're not going to maybe pay attention as much. I mean, just from what, then just the way it is, right? I mean, So bringing in guys that can give a life lesson, or girls, we've had girls too. Bringing in guys or girls that can give a life lesson, get up in front of the team and speak is just so beneficial for our program.
Yeah, I've found, and I would encourage those of you who are listening, if you haven't done this, like if you have alumni who are willing to like come back and like speak, at least, and I can speak for that for sure. Like that
Yeah,
is, it's very powerful to have players who you've had like come back, because in some cases these are guys that maybe are not too much older than some of the guys
yeah,
that you're coaching right now, and the fact that they can, talk about, the skills that they've gotten from basketball, or the life lessons that they took from it, or what the game like meant to them, and
yep,
and to hear it from somebody who like they could probably relate to, and then they maybe had similar, upbringings, or, came from the same community and stuff like that. That's just like, oh
yeah,
man, like these people are like celebrities sometimes, some of these
yeah.
alumni who come back and talk to them. And like I could see the awesome times in some of my girls' faces when they
Oh yeah,
have some of my former players come back and talk about stuff, or college, or talk about
yeah,
all these things. It's really cool. And the players and the former players love it too, because they feel so connected to what's going on still.
yeah. 100%, 100. That's what I've heard from guys that have spoken to. Like, oh, we feel so like with the program. I'm like, good, you should. Like that's what we want. Come back anytime, whatever. So
And yeah, and I love when my girls will my former players will come back and they'll say something like, "Oh, is coach still talking about this? Is he still
yeah,
teaching this or something?" It's
yeah.
like, "Yep, yep." It's like I still remember all that. I'm like, "See, I told you, so I'll just stick with you." So
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
Coach, what would you say are these what I like to call like these pride killers? What are some pitfalls or things that you think a coach who maybe is taking over a program should be aware of to make sure that, these situations, these events, maybe don't end up happening that might end up killing the pride guys or girls might have in the program?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just obviously in our program, but all the programs. Like, we call them me guys. Like, me guys are gonna kill it. It's got to be about us. It's got to be about we. Um, you know, are you score 20 points and we lose? Are you happy or are you mad that we lost? Like, or upset that we lost. Like, there's a difference of you know what could I have done differently? Could I have scored 22 points and we could have won? Or could I have made a few extra passes and scored 15 points and got the W? You know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
um, and that's like I said, that's everywhere you go. There's me guys everywhere. And as far as we go, like we try to set that straight right away. We have pretty clear expectations of players and coaches at the start of the season of what we expect. That's not just varsity. That's JV. That's 10th grade. That's ninth grade. That's all of our levels. One of the things is just being honest with guys and kind of telling them what you see and what you're here or maybe what you're hearing. And just trying to set that straight right away. It's a tough thing, but when it can be done and it's done effectively, like the best result is what happens. Whether that's a win or loss. Best result being competing, you know, playing as a team and taking pride in your school, community, yourself, parent, everything like that. So, and we talk, we show a video at the beginning of every year, like it's Coach K when he was coaching in the U.S. Olympic team, and he's in the meeting room or whatever, and he's talking to all these guys, Kobe, LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo, like, and someone said, I guess there was an assistant that said like, check your egos at the door. Like
Hmm.
this is USA basketball. And in the video, Coach K is like, I disagree with that. Like, we want you to have your ego. Kobe, we want you to be Kobe. LeBron, we want you to be LeBron. But can you do that under USA basketball's umbrella? Can we figure out a way to do that under this umbrella of playing as a team? And that's kind of what we have shown our guys every year. Like, hey, we want you to be you. We want you to do your thing, whether you're you know, kind of a guy with a little swagger, whether you're a quiet guy, like we want you to do your thing, but we want you to do your thing under Centennial Basketball's umbrella, And I think that right away has set a tone for most of the guys right away, which is, and we've had great kids these last couple of years at our school that have really bought in. So we haven't really had dealt with too many issues of this. But, just playing within yourself and playing within the team.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really interesting point that you mentioned about kind of the ego part, right? Because there's definitely something to be said of like there is a skill set that you have, or there's something that you do on this court that like we need you to do. We can't have you like sacrifice, your
Yeah,
scoring ability, right? Or
yeah,
the
right.
things that you do because that's what made you who it is that you are. But to the point of like how do we kind of fit this contextually with what we're trying to do as a team. And I kind of think back to what you talked about with that first group that you had, and the way that you would kind of slow things down, didn't have a shot
Yep.
clock, things were a lot more methodical. Like if you
Right.
were if you were a big stats guy, like you would have to check that, like trying to get 20 25 a night at the door,
Yeah.
because just like the play style needed to be successful was not going to lead the guys getting those stats necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's been great. Um, and it's like I said, our kids have been great, so we haven't really had many issues like this. But just setting the tone early, um, and just making sure it doesn't get out of control. You know what I mean? Like when it gets out of control, that's when kids start to fall a little bit, or the team morale goes down. Practices
Hmm.
start getting a little chippier. Stuff like that. Like let's just nip this thing right away, and whatever the issue is, let's talk it out. You know?
It's definitely something to kind of manage, right? This kind of fine line of like, is this practice situation? Is this like competitive, and these guys
Right.
are like going after
Yep.
it because they want each other to get better and they're competitive, or is there like a big ego thing involved, and
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is like competitive in terms of like confrontational and
Yeah.
adversarial? Like I think if you don't do that team bonding, or you don't do some of those things off the court to really strengthen those bonds, that can maybe be the difference between how those interactions go.
Right. And like I said, we had a couple of really good captains this year, and if stuff like that, stuff at practice or whatever, anything were to happen, it was it was nipped right away. Like I didn't have to say anything, and those guys were like, "Hey, let's not do this. Let's change our ways a little bit." So,
Hmm.
like I said, those guys were great. So it was nice to have that kind of player empowerment with those guys,
Yeah.
and they really felt like if I'm doing something wrong, coach will tell me, "Hey, maybe you should have done this a little differently."
Right.
And that never happened either. So those guys were great, and those guys were great leaders. Had a younger team too, so a lot of these guys coming into next year um, had a really good outlook on how it's supposed to go and how it's supposed to look. And we've got leaders coming up too that are going to be great, and understand the process and understand everything going on and understand uh, you know when to be vocal, when to not be vocal, when to just show it on the court, when to tone it down a little bit. So um,
And that's probably an ongoing process too as a
oh
coach. Like
yeah,
that's something that you're kind of managing with these guys. We're dealing with young men and women who are adolescents and growing up, and
yeah,
they're trying to figure out like, hey, is this what I'm supposed to be, like saying some things? Is this where I'm supposed to be calling somebody out? Is this where
right,
I'm supposed to just be, listening? Like this is a huge, life skill that they need to learn, and having the ability to kind of learn that skill while they're playing basketball, and then kind of like this safer environment where it's not super high stakes. Obviously, it's super important to us, but to learn to navigate that and be able to kind of have that skill ready to go for when they enter the adult world, man, that's huge.
yeah. I mean, and that's one of the things too. Like everywhere, kids are going to have bad days, right? I mean, whether that's physically, mentally, socially, emotionally, kids are going to have bad days. And it's a lot as a coach. I feel it's a lot of how you react to that. I mean,
Hmm.
and it's kind of every situation different, right? So it's just how you react to those bad days, and can you take those bad days and turn that next tomorrow into a good day? You know what I mean? Like, so, and it's they're like I've heard this quote from another coach that I respect immensely, and he's we as coaches we base our attitudes on the actions of 15 to 18-year-old kids. Like,
Yeah, I've
you know what
I've
I mean?
heard
Like
that. There's something similar.
yeah, like I have a rough night at home or whatever, and my wife or whatever be like, "What's wrong?" I'll be like, "Oh man, practice was just so bad today." And she's really good at just leveling me out, and she'll be like, "Yeah, but they're kids, got to move on to tomorrow." I'm like, "You're right. Let it go. We'll be all right." You know what I mean? So, um, yeah, I mean, having that, is is a big thing too. So
Yeah, you have to model that behavior too, right?
right.
You
Oh
have
yeah.
to be somebody who's, you yourself knows like, okay, this is when I'm going to talk, or this is how I regulate my
Yeah.
emotions, this is when I need to listen,
Yeah.
all of those things, and to be aware of the fact that like, hey, all your players are watching you and all your players are looking at the things that you're doing and the way that you act. And if you're, telling a guy that they need to, demonstrate this level of maturity and everything, and you're out here, up and down emotionally and not demonstrating that yourself, then that disconnect, I think
Oh
players
yeah.
pick up on that right away and they're probably like, why do I need to act this certain way if, this coach isn't doing it themselves?
Right. For sure. That's
Uh,
go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna just add on, and I was gonna say I like that. I was thinking about as you were talking about like that pride thing too, as well as this whole topic that we talked about pride about, as coaches. I was even thinking about like how we could have almost stuck too much pride, right? Your coach's
Yeah.
ego can get in the way, or coach's
Right.
pride, and you could have those situations where you do take things like way too personal, or you do get like way too like lost emotionally in the things that are happening after a practice or after a game. And I think, being able as a coach to kind of self-regulate and make sure that, it's not about your ego or your win-loss
Yeah.
record, and that you're kind of reeling in your own pride and ego. That's also a skill that sometimes takes a bit of time, especially as a younger coach, to develop.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was that. Well, that's what I was going to say when we spoke at the same time. Is like this year. I think one of the things that also helped too is we really tried to I'm intense on the floor all the time. I mean, um, so after games, previous years sometimes maybe we get a little too hot, and I think this year was one of those years where we learned as a coaching staff like let's try to be. I mean, obviously, if there's stuff that we need to get on, like we will, but let's try to be as little negativity as possible after a game until we see the film and until we see the stat line, the box score. Like, let's try to not assume things, because there'd be times in the past where it'd be like, hey, we've got to be able to make our layups or whatever. I mean, we got to be able to make shots inside the paint, and then you get the box score back, and it's like, okay, well, you were 26 for 34 in the paint, and it was like, okay, we weren't really that bad. It was just the 8 that we did miss is the ones we noticed and thought we were really bad at that night, right? Which
Hmm.
so it was one of those deals where it's like, all right, let's try to let's if there's something glaring, we'll talk about it at practice tomorrow. But after games, let's say, hey, we did this really well, got to keep building on this. This is what we need to work on, clearly. Let's move on, you know. So it wasn't like we were coming into practice the next day where it was like kids were like, "Oh man, we played so bad last night. This practice is gonna suck."
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So I think that helped a little bit. But again, we had great leadership too, which helps a lot. And when they say, "Hey, after games, after a tough loss, whatever," it's like, "Hey, coach, we'll be okay. Like we'll be all right. We just gotta
Right.
we just gotta get a little better at this." Like it gives you as a coach like so much more. I mean, I'm don't even know the word right now, but just like a regulate. Like okay, we'll be all right.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll
It
be all right.
definitely like
Move,
levels you out and
yeah,
it
like,
keeps you level for
I mean,
sure.
like just like all right, we'll be all
Yeah.
right. Like whatever. So
Yeah, after losses, like I don't really say much at all after losses. I mean, there's definitely stuff that I'm thinking at the moment, but at one, I don't think my thoughts are coherent or
right,
maybe as good as they should. Two, like I feel like I always like to look at film because I know my eyes can deceive me, and I want to make
yeah,
sure that like things I see on film were actually true. And three, like I think after a loss, players don't want to hear anything. Players don't want to be talked to. Players want to go home. They want to, they probably have their own emotions that they're going through. Like I think everybody kind of needs to reset.
yeah,
I've seen, too many instances and heard of too many instances of really volatile conversations after
right,
games, whether it's with parents or players or things
yeah,
get way too emotional. I think that it's best for everybody just kind of separate for a little bit and, whatever it is there needs to be learned or whatever it is people need to work on, like those things will still exist the next day, but got to separate the emotion out of it a bit.
right. And that's probably that's the hardest thing, especially for a young coach to come into. Like you just got to kind of move on. Like it sucks. Nobody likes to lose. Obviously, you're not a head coach because you want to lose. Um, so it's a tough thing to have, and it's one of those things as a coach. Like it's a constant thing of keep getting better? Can you keep getting better at it? Can you keep getting better at controlling that emotion?
All right.
You know what I mean? Like you said, like players don't want to hear it after a loss. Like if they didn't play well, they know they didn't play well. Like it is what they know. It is what it is. You know, nothing you can do to change it. Not
Right.
in that moment, right? I mean,
No, yeah, and if you've built up that pride and you've built up the things that we've talked about, they're going to be motivated the next day in practice, right? They
yeah,
don't need like
right,
extra motivation, right? It should never be an effort thing. It was, they got out executed or they got outplayed or something
yeah,
happened, but like they'll probably have enough pride in the fact that they didn't play up to whatever their standard was, that they're going to be motivated just plenty without like a big 30-minute speech after a game.
right, for sure, for sure.
Coach, to wrap up, there's a couple questions that I ask every guest. So I'll go ahead and start with this first one, which is thinking back on your coaching career. And I know you've shared a lot of moments, so hopefully you have another that you wouldn't mind
Yeah,
sharing. But what is a specific moment from your coaching career that you think by sharing our listeners would be able to learn from?
you know, I was. This was actually a question that you had sent over earlier, and it was a question that I really thought about. And it was like, man, that's a really good question. And my thing that I came up with was, it's easy when you have, programs that you're kind of the leader of, up, down. I mean, we have traveling teams down to third grade, so it's easy to kind of make assumptions on where kids are going to be or where, what, so and so is going to be really good in high school or whatever. Like, my thing is try not to ever make assumptions about kids too early,
Mm.
especially like middle school. Like, so I'll just tell you a story about one of our kids this year. Like, he's a sophomore. Uh, Started the year on the sophomore team. So we have 5 levels at Centennial. We have a 9A, a 9B, a 10th grade, a JV, and a varsity. Started the season on 10th grade. After the first game, I think it was, moved up to JV. After about 5 games, started playing varsity, and played varsity, throughout the year. And this is a kid that, as a sophomore, like I said, made those jumps throughout the year. But this was a kid that played 9B basketball and played 8C traveling basketball, which is, the third best team, and played 7C basketball, the third best team, and just consistently worked his butt off and was in the weight room and did everything he asked, and everything that you needed from him, he did. And always came with a working attitude, bought into what we were doing, wanted to keep getting better, and it was a success story for this kid. So any other, like, if we would have made the assumption like, oh, he's had a really good, practice, or he's had really good practices leading up, or he's had a really good tryout, or he's had a really good summer, it's like, is this kid for real? And we took a chance on him, and he did a great job for us. So my thing is, don't count kids out too early. Let them work. Let them get older. Let them get in the weight room. Let them do their thing. Let them mature a little bit, and see what happens.
Awesome, right? It's so easy to write off kids,
Right.
early,
Yeah.
right? Or, sometimes I've been in situations too, kind of in similar boats to what you said, of like a kid, just has like doesn't have a great day on his on their first impression, or that first
Yeah.
interaction like wasn't the best interaction that you had. And so easy, I think, to just think of like, okay, this was our first interaction, this is the first impression I have, this is who you're gonna be like for the rest of
Yeah.
the time, so I'm gonna write this kid off. But no, like these kids will surprise you, especially those ones like you described it, the ones who want it that bad, they're gonna
Yeah.
be the ones that are gonna really surprise you.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, like, having a youth program. It's like, oh, so and so is going to be really good one day. And
Hmm.
you'll be like, he's a sixth grader. Like, how do you know that? You know what I mean? Like, he may be good right now,
Yeah,
but in 4 years, when so and so gets to be 6'7" and so gets to be 6'6", and he's still 6'1" or whatever.
right.
And that's not like an actual example in our program right now, but it's like, just
I know that. Yeah, no,
what
I
I mean,
get it.
just like hey, things change, man. In high school, these kids get older, and um, the maturity level, and the work ethic changes. A lot of stuff changes.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
go back to, like, I talked a little bit about our kid that scored 25 points a game for us this year. Like, as a ninth grader, never wanted to shoot the ball. Like, we had to, like, tell him, Jackson, you need to shoot six to eight threes a game on JV. And he's like, didn't want to do it. We're like, no, like, you have the talent. You're good enough. Like, and now he turns into the kid with probably the most confidence, of any kid that I've had. with the basketball in his hands. I mean, just so much can change.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we had a guy on the boys' side of our program. He was a pretty decent player, but man, he worked really hard, and then all of a sudden he grew like 6 inches once,
Yeah,
and he went from 6'1" to 6'7". I was like, oh
yeah,
well, and then he already had the work ethic at 6'1", and it's like, oof, and then all of a
right.
sudden he just completely like busted out. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so just have an
Coach, to
open
wrap
mind.
up, I
That's
give
that's what I'd
every
say.
guest what I like to call a 60-second soapbox. You can go over 60 seconds, but I just like to put clever, fun titles to things. But I like to use it as a platform for you to get out like a final thought, a final message, a closing idea, just something that you can leave the listeners with. You can take it any direction you want, basketball or coaching wise, because it's your soapbox after all. So, Coach, I'm just going to go ahead and give you the floor here and let you take it from here.
All right. I mean, I think with social media and everything nowadays, I think there's a lot of outside influences that coaches can have, whether that's the coaches Twitters right now that's all over coaches, I should say X, coaches X that are all over. It's easy to get sucked into, oh, I'm not doing this the right way, or I'm not doing this the right way. Like, my thing is just be yourself, stay true to what you know, what you believe in. Obviously, like, there's a lot of great content out there, but just don't try to get too sucked into everything, because eventually, I look at my bookmarks on X and it's like 100 different things of basketball coaches Twitters and stuff. And it's easy to just kind of overanalyze everything. So, like I said, be true to yourself, believe in what you believe in, and whatever you think is best for your program or whatever you think is best for your team that you're coaching at that time, like, stick with it. So that's what I got.
I love it. No, there's just so much stuff out there, right? There's just
Yeah,
so
no,
much out there, and it can be
and
overwhelming.
yeah, and it's great. Like, it's awesome. Like, just the fact that we're doing this podcast right now is like, follow here or
Mhm.
follow there. Like, you want to come on the podcast? Yeah, great.
Yeah,
And so
yeah. Yeah, I know. I completely agree. I think I've said this many times. We're such a great community in basketball coaching, in particular, of how much we are willing to share information and share resources and talk to one another. But also, to your point, there's just so much out there that you got to find what works for you, or
sure.
find the stuff that you can handle processing, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed or feel that like there's just so much you need to keep up with. But no, to your point, you don't need to keep up with all of it.
Yeah,
You gotta find what works for you, and feed those fires, because there's no way you can keep up with everything. I think if I'm out of social media for a couple days, I probably missed like who knows how much. I'm like, I can't keep up with all that. I'll just pick up with a few things and go from there.
right.
Awesome. Well, Coach, man, I really appreciated all the stuff that you shared about, building pride, building what you have in Centennial. I mean, what a special season that kind of culminated with the group that you had last year. But I know you're looking to still, build off that and continue off that. So, thank you so much for all the stuff that you shared. It was really fun to hear the journey that you and your program's been on, and I know we'll continue to be on here in the future, upcoming season. So, Coach Waldvogel, man, again, super, super appreciate it. Thank you so much, and best of luck as we hit this off season and the year to come.
Yeah, appreciate it, Coach. Thanks for having me on. It was awesome, and good luck with your season as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.